A transfer of wealth is coming. In fact, a great transfer of wealth, the great wealth transfer as it's been dubbed, set to put women in control of the majority of finances by 2030. That's according to Women's Wealth Research. So, helping women gain financial confidence is even more important than ever. Here with me now, we've got Candy Valentino, business and wealth growth expert and author of the book you see right there on the screen, The 9% Edge. Candy, great to have you here in studio with us.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to get to some of the themes in the book here, but first and foremost, when we talk about the great wealth transfer, how do you see this impacting and closing, hopefully, the gender wealth gap as well?
It's such an incredible time for women in wealth. So, we know right now that about 35 to 45% of the U.S. wealth is controlled by women, and we're going to go that over 2/3 by 2030. So it's a really great opportunity for women to start understanding money. And it's not something that we're taught in school, and it's something that's typically scary for women to fully understand, but it's only because it's new. So it's really a great opportunity for women to really understand that, hey, this is a concept I can learn about, I need to understand it, I need to educate myself so that I can start making my money work for me.
And so with that in mind, where are some of the biggest shifts in financial management that you expect to come about as we do see education, but then actionability on the other side of that?
Absolutely. And I think that you actually alluded to on your prior segment when you were talking about women in small businesses, right? So we come from, my generation. When I first got my first small business loan in 1999, women weren't even allowed to, for just 10, 15 years, get a small business loan without a man's signature on the form. Wow. So we've come a long way. And so this is a great opportunity. Now we see more women in business. We see more women wanting to get investing. And so it's really about starting. Oftentimes we think we need to understand it. But I always use the analogy that if Tom Brady waited to be a Super Bowl champion, he would have never got on the field.
Right,
you have to throw. That's right. Yeah. You have to throw the passes in order to be the champion. So investing is all about behavior. We always say it's only 25% knowledge, it's 75% behavior. So what you do with a little tiny bit of money, start investing now, will determine what you do when you start to earn more money.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as we think about one of the themes that you talk about, this 10-10-10 strategy, what is this, and break this down for us?
I like to keep it super simple, because if it's super simple, we can understand it and we can duplicate it. So how do we increase our earnings by just 10%? If we just ask better questions, we can get better results. How can we increase our earnings? Can we look at promotions? Can we start something on the side, a small business that we can start to make more money? How do we go through and start to reduce our expenses by 10% so that we can bridge a gap and start investing 10% of our money? Because again, even if you can't do 10% now, start with 5 so that eventually you can ramp up to start saving and investing 20% of your total taxable income.
It's a great kind of easy to remember strategy as well here. When we were talking about this in our previous segment as well, about how many businesses, small businesses that are run by women, contribute actually back into the local community as well. I mean, one of the things that you talk about is considering community. How do we kind of marry those two things together and making sure that in starting your small business or in having an investment strategy that you are considering community as well?
So it's very interesting. We found that when women control more wealth, that they're also more philanthropic. So not only do they like to learn in community, but they're also involved in their community. We look at some of the richest women in the world, like Scott and Gates, and how they're just giving a lot of their funds away. So we know that when women make more money and they understand money, that they actually do good things with it. So not only educating yourself, but getting around other people that are also starting to have this. Because if you and I are best friends and we're wanting to plan a weekend trip and you want to go super bougie and I'm trying to live on a budget, you're probably going to pull me out of my budget, right? So we need to have community of like-minded people.
Look, I'm usually the one that's saying, hey, let's pull this back a little bit here. But I appreciate you thinking that I'm going super bougie on anything. Just lastly, while we have you here, when we think about the great wealth transfer and the biggest shift that we could see in even the types of investments that are being made, what are you kind of tracking up against, especially right now, knowing some of the historical plays that have been made in the investment thesis and how that could shift once we see this great wealth transfer come to fruition?
So I'm going to break it down really simple. So number one, if someone watching right now has a job that they have a 401k or something that their business is giving them money for, don't ever trip over $100 bills that are laying on the ground. Pick those up, take that, make sure that you go all in on whatever retirement vehicle. Second is if you already have done that and you make less than $146,000 a year, you're eligible for a Roth IRA. It's a great place to start. You can actually invest up to $7,000 a year so that you can set it and forget it and start to invest that money all the time. The third thing would be if you're like, okay, Candy, check, I got that. Well, now we need to look at building a diverse portfolio and all that means is to have a bunch of investments that aren't necessarily tied together. So you might want some tech investments, you might want to do some ETFs, you might want to do a REIT or start to dabble in real estate investing. So those are kind of the three big buckets that you want to check off so that you can start to take that 10% that you bridge the gap by the 10-10-10 and really start investing into the future.
Great advice, great tips. Candy Valentino, who is the business and wealth growth expert and author of The 9% Edge. Great to have you here in studio.
Thanks for having me.